Picture this. A highly successful, wildly talented artist is found standing over her husband's body. He's been shot in the face 5 times. And from that second on, she never speaks another word. I mean, literally, not to the police, not to her family, nobody. For years, the world is left totally in the dark, but the truth behind her absolute silence, well, it's way more disturbing than anyone could have ever guessed. It actually reminds me of a line from the ancient Greek tragedy Alceste. But why does she not speak? And honestly, that is the terrifying question at the absolute core of what we're looking at today. So today we are ripping open the files on a psychological thriller that literally shattered the public consciousness, The Silent Patient: Anatomy of a Murder. We're going to approach this explainer just like a true crime documentary. We're breaking down the evidence, laying out the suspects, and diving deep into the twisted psychology of a woman who committed a brutal, bloody crime and then just locked herself inside her own mind. Okay, let's map this out. We need to look at exactly what went down on August 25th. It was this unusually hot summer night. Gabriel Berenson, who's a super famous fashion photographer, heads out for a shoot at 5:15 a.m. It's a long, grueling day. He finally gets back to his luxury London home around 11 p.m., just 30 minutes later. At 11:30 p.m., a neighbor hears it, the unmistakable crack of several gunshots. The police are dispatched right away, and they get there at 11:33 p.m. It only took them 3 minutes. But as you'll see, it was already too late. Because what the police walked into was it was a nightmare. A totally visceral, gruesome reality. There was blood everywhere, splashed up the walls, pulling on the expensive wooden floorboards. Gabriel was tied to a chair, completely executed, and right there in the middle of it all was Alicia. She was wearing a white dress, completely covered in his blood. There's a knife glinting on the floor by her feet, and when the cops grabbed her arms, they found deep, fresh cuts on her wrists. It's a dark, terrifying scene, right? Now, as you can imagine, this domestic tragedy blew up. It became an absolute massive public obsession. Alicia survived her suicide attempt, but like we said, she completely refused to speak. She became this instant tabloid enigma. The world just couldn't look away. I mean, why did she do it? Was it some kind of game gone wrong? A blind, jealous rage? The fact that the killer was completely mute just threw petrol on the fire of this mystery. And that silence, it built a massive web of suspicion. Let's look at this like a detective's murder board. Who are our key players? First, you've got Jean Felix. He's Alicia's gallery manager. He knew her way before her husband did, and man, he is holding on to some deep resentment. Then there's Max Berenson. He's Gabriel's brother, also a lawyer, and he is very clearly hiding some romantic feelings for Alicia. Then we have Paul, her cousin, who is sitting on a seriously dark secret from her childhood. And finally, Professor Diomedes. He's the forensic psychiatrist in charge of her care. So look at this list. Every single one of them is hiding something. Which brings us to Section 1. Enter the psychotherapist. While the media eventually moves on to the next big scandal, one guy becomes completely, dangerously fixated on making Alicia talk. His name is Theo Faber. He's a forensic psychotherapist, and he literally maneuvers his way into getting a job at the Grove, that's a secure psychiatric unit where she's being held, just so he can treat her. He is 100% convinced that he and only he can crack her silence. See, Theo is driven by this really fascinating psychological concept. Sigmund Freud actually said that no mortal can keep a secret. He wrote, if his lips are silent, he chatters with his fingertips. Betrayal oozes out of him at every pore. That's intense, right? Theo realizes Alicia's silence isn't just an absence of words. It's a locked door. And Theo, he's obsessed with finding the key. And here's the crazy part. Theo figures out that Alicia actually did communicate. Once, right after the murder, she painted a self-portrait, and she titled it Alcestis. Now, Alcestis is an ancient Greek myth about a heroine who willingly sacrifices her own life for her husband. She actually agrees to die in his place when his own parents refuse to. It's this incredibly sad, unsettling story about self-sacrifice. So you have to ask yourself, Why on earth would a woman who just blew her husband away name her final painting after someone who died to save hers? When you actually look at the chilling details of this painting, it tells a very dark story. It shows Alicia completely naked in her studio, standing in front of a totally blank canvas, gripping a blood-red paintbrush. The whole thing screams silence. But when Theo leans in and looks closer, he spots something so disturbing hidden in the background. Resting on a bowl of red apples, there are these tiny, slippery white blobs just creeping in and around the fruit. It's a subtle, hidden detail, but it totally signals decay, madness, and that something is profoundly wrong beneath the surface. Which brings us to the biggest, most chilling question of this entire case. Is Alicia's silence the result of some severe, paralyzing trauma? Or is it a calculated, absolute masterpiece of a performance? Look, during her trial, Professor Diomedes told the court her silence proved she was in profound psychological distress. Basically, he said she was mad, which kept her out of a regular prison. But what if she isn't mad? If this is all an act, then she is a master manipulator. Section 2. The Echoes of Childhood Trauma. To figure out the truth, we actually have to go backward. Theo knows that homicidal rage doesn't just poof into existence out of nowhere. It starts way back in the past. So to understand the murder, he starts digging into Alicia's childhood, eventually tracking down her cousin, Paul. And poking around in her past unearths this absolutely horrific realization. Years ago, Alicia's mother died in a terrible car accident, and her father, Vernon Rose, was totally broken by it. Well, one night, a very young Alicia accidentally overheard her dad saying something unthinkable. He said he wished Alicia had died instead of her mother. Let that sink in. Alicia later whispered to her cousin the devastating words, "He killed me. Dad just killed me." This right here, this unlocks the entire psychological motive. Remember the Greek myth we talked about earlier? In the story, Admetus physically condemns his wife to die. Well, in real life, Vernon Rose committed what you'd call psychic infanticide. He emotionally condemned his own daughter to death. Alicia's dad destroyed her soul long before she ever picked up a weapon. That kind of trauma, it builds up over the years, just waiting for a spark. Section 3. The Twist. The Faceless Intruder. Because just when we think we have Alicia's psychological profile completely nailed down, boom. The whole case flips upside down. We hit a massive revelation that absolutely shatters everything the public thought they knew. Let's walk through what actually happened that night, the real sequence of events. When Gabriel came home, he and Alicia weren't alone. Step 1, a faceless intruder leaps out of the darkness. Step 2, Gabriel is knocked to the floor and bound to a chair with wire. Step 3, the intruder grabs Alicia and tells her point blank, if she makes a single sound, if she speaks at all, he will shoot Gabriel in the head. Step 4, the intruder raises the gun, fires 6 times, executing Gabriel, drops the weapon, and completely vanishes into the night. Talk about a mind-bending reality check. The media fed everyone this story about a cold-blooded wife snapping and shooting her husband in a psychotic rage. But the hidden reality? Alicia Berenson was completely innocent. She was forced to sit there in the dark and watch a faceless intruder execute the love of her life. She never even pulled the trigger. But hold on, this leaves us with a massive, glaring gap in the story. If Alicia never uttered a single word to the cops, to her doctors, to anyone, how in the world did we finally learn the truth about this intruder? How do we know exactly what went down in that room? The answer comes down to one incredible piece of physical evidence, a black leather journal. See, a few weeks before the murder, Gabriel gave Alicia a blank journal to help her work through her depression. And it turns out she documented everything leading up to that night, including her growing, terrifying suspicion that a stranger was watching her. And where did she hide it? In the absolute last place anyone would ever think to look. She wedged it tightly into the back of the frame of her final painting, the Alcestis. Reading this journal gives us our final, true understanding of who Alicia is. She wrote this devastating confession. I love him so totally, completely. Sometimes it threatens to overwhelm me. That intense, deeply recorded love completely contradicts the horror of that crime scene. It's the ultimate proof that she didn't kill him. She absolutely adored him. But that leaves us with one final haunting thought to end our explainer on today. If the intruder was the one who pulled the trigger and took Gabriel's life, whose betrayal truly silenced Alicia Berenson forever? Was it the deep, lingering trauma inflicted by her father, the pure horror of the intruder, or is there an even darker betrayal hiding in the shadows of that terribly hot August night? The anatomy of this murder proves one thing for sure. Sometimes, silence isn't empty at all. It's full of answers we might just be too terrified to hear.